2:41 a.m. Tarik Bay. The sea is so flat it looks engineered. A sodium lamp hums over a concrete quay painted with lines that used to matter in peacetime, no wake authorized vehicles restricted area. Out in the black, the water takes on a second sky. A gull screams once and decides against a second opinion. On the pier sits an $80 million corvette of the Bayan M family compact, angular, lethal in open water, complacent when moored. 8 3M14 caliber cruise missiles sleep in their rectangular coffins. The ship's positive ME surface search radar is in low-power maintenance, the MR2313 navigation set, idling the TK25E electronic support array, recording but not arguing. On the quay, a fuel cart coughs. A pallet of sealed cans waits beneath plastic like a chorus line that never got the memo. Inside the hull, watchstanders fight the world's oldest enemy on night shift time with coffee checklists and the discipline of habit. Across the bay, coastal defenses are a museum of modernity, a Panzer S-1 point defense TL with twin 30mm guns and a rack of 57 E6 SAMs, a Podlet K-1 low-altitude radar turning its patient circle, a Murmansk BN jammer truck sitting dark, a nest of quadcopters boxed for rapid launch. In theory, the harbor is a hedgehog. In practice, hedgehogs have blind angles and habits. The last 3 cargo vessels arrived between 1:55 a.m. and 2:25 a.m., all broadcasting AIS, all tug-escorted, all loud. Nobody expects trouble at 2:41 a.m. because trouble likes an audience. The corvette's combat information post is thinly manned. Half the crew is either rotating through maintenance or catching 80-minute naps. A boatswain's mate checks a deck drain with a flashlight beam the width of a finger and decides everything looks like yesterday, which is the most dangerous judgment a sailor can make. In the stack, warm air snakes upward and carries the smell of kerosene and paint. A petty officer studies a maintenance form that he could fill out with his eyes closed, and that unfortunately is the second most dangerous judgment a sailor can make. 2:47 a.m., a small civilian boat paints scab nets piled high, the universal grammar of boring drifts into the bay's outer cone. It's the kind of craft coastal states tolerate because coastal economies depend on them. Its engine note is uneven in the way engines of that class are always uneven. The wake says light. The AIS says nothing. A board shore guard marks it in a paper log and circles later because boredom is also a system. Inside the skiff, 2 men from Ukraine's 73rd Naval Center sit so quietly the boat might be driving them. Their clothes read fishermen, their faces read any harbor at 3 in the morning. What doesn't read fishermen is inside the hull, shock-mounted electronics, 2 low-profile launch trays under a false deck, and a battery box shaped to look like a cooler. A short mast carries a thermal imager that looks like a knockoff deck light. The skiff's heat signature has been tuned within an inch of legality. Against the black water, it whispers the one word every defender fears: normal. What the shore team cannot see, what their radar lobes skim over, is the pair of FPV strike drones tucked beneath the false deck. Each airframe is a matte gray 5.5 FT wingspan dart with an 8 lb armor-piercing charge in the nose. No fancy glass cockpits, no NATO-style acronyms, just carbon motor brain. Each is pre-programmed with a terrain-graced route that rides the bay's micro-winds at 7 ft above the water, where sea clutter and pier geometry fold radar returns into static. The guidance package is self-contained, no GPS, required no persistent data link to jam. If the spectrum goes ugly, the drones keep their appointment. 2:51 a.m. On the quay, a duty officer strolls past a warning placard that nobody reads because everyone can recite it. He shouts to a deckhand about a hose kink gets a wave. He interprets as assent and makes a note he won't remember later. The corvette's EW watch records an uptick in consumer-grade chatter from a nearby neighborhood phone's yawning to life, a taxi dispatch click nothing that rates an eyebrow. Atop a remote shed, a commercial weather station clicks to a new wind reading 3 knots, southerly indifferent. Beyond the breakwater, the skiff winks out of the Podlet K-1's effective low-angle arc when a tired operator shifts gain to investigate a more obvious return, a steel tug leaving noisy and cooperative. The Panzer crew sends a text about tea. 2:56 a.m. In the skiff, the men measure their breathing against a small, ruthless clock. One checks the stabilizer brackets on the forward tray with a gloved thumb and reads the silent language of a machine ready. The other kills the main engine with a flick that sounds like a light switch in a church. Momentum carries them the last 10 meters. Water chatters under the bow and suggests that the world still believes in physics. They pop the false deck. The bay receives the first drone, a shadow giving birth to a shadow. A red task light blinks, then disappears into the gray, then the water keeps no diary. The second drone comes free 1 heartbeat later and hums toward a geometry test it cannot fail. 2:58 a.m. On board the Corvette, a technician taps a screen that should display antenna health. It blinks once, then stabilizes, then blinks again. He writes a number and circles it because that's what the manual wants. On the pier, a sentry yawns in a way that makes a sound. He regrets it, then regrets nothing. 2:59 a.m. The first drone call sign, Haram, skims the pier's shadow line and pops just high enough to clear a coil of rope that will matter to nobody tomorrow. The second Vid Plata Retribution slides on a path that any simulator would have given a 90% no-contact rating. Both are inside the Podlet's ground clutter and under the Panzer's comfortable math. It is finally the minute that separates a long piece from a longer report. 3:10 a.m. Somewhere on shore, a stray dog decides the night is over and starts a fight with nothing. Somewhere else, an old refrigerator dies and a light dims. The universe practices foreshadowing for people who don't believe in it. 3:01 a.m. The harbor's camera network writes another uneventful file to a server that thinks it will live forever. The Corvette's watch rotation ticks 1 notch. A relief sailor stands, adjusts a collar, and tells a joke he won't finish. Across the water, a matte gray wing finds the angle it rehearsed 100 times in silence and prepares to make an $80 million argument in 2 sentences. 3:02 a.m. The drones are now each inside 800 meters. At that range, even an alert point defense would be solving for velocity closure, aspect background clutter, and what is that all at once? The Corvette isn't alert, it's busy. Busy looks like safety until it doesn't. 3:03 a.m. The last 5 seconds take longer than the first 500. The harbor breathes in. The universe pauses. The tape rolls. The skiff did its work, blend, drift, deliver. The drones do the rest. Haram rides the pier, shadow hops the coil, and aims for the central radar tower, the Corvette's picture maker. Retribution angles port, hugging a seam that the Panzer never trained for: small, slow, too close for comfort, and too low for certainty. 3:31 a.m. Haram punches the radar tower. Antennas shatter, arrays buckle, cables whip. The ship's eyes die. Consoles jump from quiet to alarm to useless. The TK-25E5 hears all and understands nothing. Spray glitters like bad confetti. For a beat and a half, procedure is stunned by surprise. In fights like this, seconds are currency. Without a picture, even excellent weapons become decor. A Corvette at the pier is no longer a hunter. It's a homework problem with smoke. 3:31:06 a.m. 6 seconds later, Retribution threads the last seam and pins the third caliber launcher, prepped for reload, flammable by temperament. Plate buckles. Conduits deform. Fire finds fuel. Heat finds oxygen. Automation races math and loses the first lap. Sailors fight the twin enemies of smoke and surprise with hoses, masks, and courage that doesn't need applause. Eyes off. Sword bent. Offense and defense go dark together. Guidance loops flatline. Backup channels wait for a picture that isn't coming. The ship remains present, but no longer fighting. On balance sheets and battle rhythms alike, that's a mission kill. Compartments flood as lines rupture. The hull takes a 3 to 5 degree enlist. A sailor's squint confirms balance is compromised. Emergency generators bite but cannot resurrect the tactical brain. Sensors blind. Launch control dead. The order tastes like rust, prepare for tow. A vessel that came to reload will leave as cargo. Harbor responders do what responders do. Foam arcs, pumps, thrum, loud hailers, bark safe words. A quadcopter rises, sees heat more than context, and lands again because context matters. The Panzer points its menace into the quiet and waits for a target that already cashed its ticket. The record hardens. Drone POV shows approach. Tower strike. Launcher strike. Growth of fire. Commercial satellite catches the next dawn's discoloration on the deck. Open source analysts stitch shadows into a slideshow with timestamps you can measure. Mission kill replaces rumors because evidence starves speculation. A ship that cannot see or shoot is out of the fight even if it never touches the bottom. For the Black Sea Fleet, this is not a sinking, it's worse scheduled destruction. For Ukraine, it is a syllabus small team, autonomous FPV deceptive approach, synchronized hits. For everyone else, it's doctrine homework. Safe harbor is legal language, not tactical armor. Expect investments in CUAS pickets, rapid launch intercept drones, harbor microwave fences, pier angle redesign, and a new humility about maintenance windows. For American and NATO audiences, especially those who wore a uniform, the lesson isn't novelty, it's discipline. The non-lethal ladder you preach, hail show record. Reposition has a lethally precise cousin detect, decide, disrupt, deny. Same cadence, same insistence on owning the record. Because afterward, you'll need to show allies, insurers, and fence sitters why the fight went the way it did. 3:32 a.m. The sea inhales, not peace the silence after a shout. In 72 hours, a chain of moves bends expectations missiles without warning retaliation, without hesitation, and a superpower message etched into capital concrete. The United States didn't seek war. It shut down a threat. No land grab, just time, reputation, and consequences reset to the boring settings that make commerce normal and mornings tolerable. Control isn't loud. It's the unglamorous arithmetic that turns a volatile morning into an ordinary afternoon. It's checklists that keep their dignity when tempers don't. It's a bridge team that knows which knob not to touch, a CIC that prefers facts to flourishes, a pilot who holds altitude because the camera needs the same truth tomorrow. Control is choosing the angle that cannot be misread on replay. That's how you win in an era where a 10-second clip can outrun a 10-page brief. It also travels. Allies read control as a promise. If they share radar tracks, air corridors, and legal risk with us, we won't spend it recklessly. Insurers price it as reduced volatility. A day that ends on schedule keeps ships in lanes and premiums in range. Adversaries file it as a constraint. They can gamble on pride, but they can't bank on us losing our voice. Even neutrals, the small states and port authorities who live by timetables, treat control as the difference between a rumor and a rule. Inside the lifelines, control is culture. It's the OOD who says sea room before anyone says speed. It's the TAO who can recite ROE in their sleep and still finds the page in daylight. It's a junior sailor wiping salt from a lens because the footage must be clean when the embassy asks for it. It's a chief who quietly moves a knot of bystanders off the bridge wing because professionalism looks like space. None of that makes headlines. All of it makes history. Strategy lives there too. The United States did not stage a spectacle. It sequenced effects. The opening ambush met layered defense. The response met law. The strike met proportionality, not an erasure, a precise subtraction of coordination and nerve. Then came silence, the hardest effect to earn. Not the silence of fear, but the silence of predictable routines, returning a pilot boat, nudging a container ship into berth a fuel truck, rolling on time, a family planning dinner without checking the news twice. Control is kind to the future. It leaves room for ministers to de-escalate, without losing face, for partners to double down, without explaining your temper, for young sailors to learn the right lesson, that judgment outranks adrenaline. It's not weakness, it's stewardship. A superpower isn't defined by how much noise it can make, but by how little noise it needs to make to get the world back to work. And control is teachable. You rehearse the non-lethal ladder until it becomes reflex hail, show, record, reposition. You train to keep fire-controlled tone off the table unless the line is crossed. You brief the helicopter profile that reads witness not warning, and you fly it even when the horizon is angry. You practice the after-action too, where the tape is cataloged, the bearings are checked twice, and the lesson is captured as calmly as the day demanded. That paperwork is armor for the next storm. In wardrooms and ready rooms, the refrain is the same: presence over panic, procedure over performance. Somewhere inside the hull, a sailor texts a parent, long day, boring ending, that's the win. So here's the question we leave with you. Was this victory about strength or a masterclass in discipline? Drop your take below. If you value law-anchored veteran-caliber analysis, subscribe and share this with someone who tracks maritime security without the noise. The next incident will come. The task is to make it predictable, recorded, and over before dinner, because that's the quiet promise of sea power in a free world routine on demand. Not swagger, not spectacle, just the confidence that if something ugly breaks the surface at 2:41 a.m., professionals will fold it back under by 5:30 p.m., and the only thing most people will notice is that the ferry left on time. Control scales outward. Coalitions run on it. When partners see a timeline that's predictable, recorded, and over before dinner, they offer more than sympathy. They offer access, airspace, and signatures that thicken the record the next time a ministry tries to litigate the day on television. Control also scales inward. Sailors trust leadership that keeps the temperature low and the checklist high. That trust is compound and control the pace. Do that again and again, and oceans remain what they're supposed to be, highways, not headlines. Tell me below. And if clear-eyed, law-anchored analysis is your home port, subscribe, and share this with a friend who cares about sea lanes more than sound bites.